Hi everyone, this is Gina. Today I will be showing you how to make a necklace to match the triangle dangle earrings we made in our last video tutorial. Now this necklace is made up of the component that we made in our earring tutorial. However, I will not be referring you back to the earring tutorial to make this component. I'm going to go ahead and make the component again in this video so that you won't have to go searching for the other video. Now if you've already watched it or if you've already made the earrings, that part will be a review for you. I just feel that it's more convenient to have it all in one video instead of having to look around for the other one in case you have not seen it. Or, of course, you can't be expected to remember exactly how to do it either. So it's just easier to have it all included in one. And this necklace is about 19 inches long with the clasping. Now the way that you will increase or decrease your length will be on these back units that we'll make here. So you can just use more or less if you'd like. We're basically going to just use the same amount of components regardless. We'll just increase and decrease this part. Now let's look at what we're going to need to do this project today. Today I'm going to use an opaque turquoise triangle bead. It's the 2-hole check triangle beads, of course, and this is more on the green side than it is the blue side as far as turquoise is concerned. And you will need 156 of them for this project. We are also going to need a 4mm and a 6mm round bead. Now, I am using a clear glass druck check bead for both of these. You can use a pearl, you can use a crystal, you could use a pearl for the 6 and a crystal for the 4, or you could use 2 crystals, 2 pearls, whatever you would like. I just think that the way the light reflects off the clear glass is really nice. So even when I've changed my colors of my triangles, I've stayed with the same round beads. You will also need 1 4mm bicone. I know that sounds odd, but we're going to put one right in the very center. On this one I used a clear bicone. Show you. But right here in the center we're going to use 1 crystal. Of course you don't have to. You can put just another one of your little 4mm drucks on there if you want. And then we're going to need and for the numbers of our beads here, you're going to need 55 4mm rounds, and you're going to need 88 6mm rounds. And this will vary, of course, the drucks on how long you make your necklace, because the back portion is drucks that we will either extend or shorten our length with. You'll need a 6mm or a 6/0 seed bead, and you'll need approximately 109 of them. And this is a check seed bead. I've done it with Tohos. It works just fine. If you use a Japanese seed bead, make sure you use the round seed beads, not the delicas or treasures. They just don't lay as nicely as round beads with other round beads. So make sure you're using a round. And like I said, this is a check. And this is a Terra marble stone look. And then you will need an 11/0 seed bead. This is a Toho galvanized silver permanent finish. And you'll need a clasp. I'm just using this little toggle clasp today. You will need a beading needle and several yards of 8 or 6 pound FIreline. I prefer 8, but 6 pound will work just fine. You'll also need a beading needle, and I'm using a size 10 English beading needle. So to get started with our components, we will make 13 of them in total. The first ones that we will make, the first 11, we will make with an arm's length of 8 pound or 6 pound FIreline. The last 2 that we will make, we will use a wingspan and a half, which is about 1.5 yards, maybe a little bit more. And then you will leave those threads long and on the units. On the first 11 units, we will cut the threads off. So I'm going to start with my first unit with an arm's length of 8 pound FIreline. Then you want to lay your beads out in a little line like this. You're having the tip away from you and the base towards you so that you can see the holes clearly and know which hole you're picking up next, because it will matter which hole you're picking up when you're making these units. So just go ahead and lay your 12 beads out per unit. Each unit will have 12 triangles. So when we start, we're going to start by picking up in the left-hand hole. So if these beads are facing you, you will pick them up from the left-hand hole and you will pick up 4 of them. And let's get a little closer here. Now you will bring these down to the end of the thread. You don't have to leave a long tail, just enough to where you can tie a knot comfortably. No, it's a little too much. So go ahead and tie them into a circle, like this, and then knot it. Make sure they're nice and secure. And then pick them up with the tops of the triangles, the points up, like this. And then just sew back through all of the holes. So you're going to be working in the same hole that your thread is already in. And you're just going to go all the way around, and we're just going to secure this so that our unit doesn't fall apart. Once you've sewn all the way around, go past where your knot is, and then this is what you should have. Get just a little bit closer. I don't want to be working out of frame, so let's not get it too close. This is what you should have. Now you will pick up an 11-0 seed bead, and you will go from hole to hole again, working in the same holes we've been in, and just place an 11-0 seed bead between all the beads. And this is what you should have. Once you go around the last one, go through the 11-0, and then just the next triangle bead. Don't go through the 11-0 next to it. And then we will go up into the top hole of that triangle bead. And now we are going to add more triangles, but now that our thread is going the opposite direction, we need to pick up the opposite hole. So we're going to pick up the right-hand hole this time, and we're going to pick up 2 in our little triangle beads. Make sure you're picking up the right-hand hole, and then go from triangle bead to triangle bead, and pull them between like this. Pick up 2 more in the right-hand hole, go into the next triangle bead, and pull. Just like that. 2 more in the right-hand hole, and go from triangle bead to triangle bead. And this is what you should have so far. 2 more. And in this one, we are going to go through the triangle bead, and then through the first 2 beads we added, and exit the next triangle bead. So we're going to go through 3 beads here. Get these to line up here. And then we're going to go through this little short triangle bead and the next one. So we want to end up in the middle of the 2 beads that we just added in our second step. So you're just going to come around and then go through another bead, and you'll be between the two tall beads. The little short beads are here. We want to place an 11-0 between all the little tall beads. So now I'm between two tall beads. I'm going to pick up an 11-0, then I'm going to pass through the next 3 beads so that it places my needle between the next 2 tall beads. Just like that. Then I'm going to pick up an 11-0, and again I'm going to go through the next 3 beads until my needle comes out between the next 2 tall beads. And one more time, pick up an 11-0 seed bead, go through 3 triangles until I'm coming out between the next 2 tall beads. And again, and we're going to go through the little 11-0 also, because we're on our very last unit. So we're going to go ahead and go through the 11-0, go through the 3 beads, go through the 11-0 that you placed first, your very first one, when you started this step, and then go through the triangle bead, just the triangle bead that it's next to, right there. And then hop into the top hole of that triangle bead, right here. So let's get a little bit closer so you can see what we've got now. Now we are going to embellish between the triangle beads. We will put a 6-0 where the little 11-0s are, and we'll put a 6mm round where the short little triangle beads are. So we're going to pick up a 6-0 because our thread is coming out where there is an 11-0 seed bead. So we want to go from triangle bead to triangle bead in our top hole now, and we're going to just place a 6-0 and we're going to pull tight. Now your tension has to be really good on this, so make sure that everything is really tight. If it's not, as you're making your unit, you can sew through all the steps more than once. Now we're coming out where the little short triangle is, so we're going to go from triangle bead to triangle bead, and we're going to add a 6mm round bead, and we're going to just pull and pop it into place nice and tightly there. And then we're going to turn, and now we're coming out here and there's a little 11-0 seed bead, so we're going to add a 6-0 seed bead between the 2 triangles, and we're going to pull it tight. And again, we're coming out where there's a short triangle bead, so we're going to add now a 6mm round. Pull it in there, pop it in there really tight, and then we're coming out where there's an 11-0. We're going to add a 6-0. And again, there's a short triangle, so we're going to add a 6mm round. And we're by our seed beads, so we add a 6-0. And our very last one will be a 6mm round. Now we're going to go through the triangle and the 6-0 seed bead right next to it. This positions us for our next step. In our next step, we will put little picots of seed beads around here. Well, sort of a picot, a little triangle with seed beads. So we're going to pick up 3 11-0s. And we're going to go from 6-0 to 6mm round. And just pull. And this will kind of make a little peak there. Now, we're going to pick up 3 more. And we're just going to work our way all the way around from 6mm to 6-0, 6-0 to 6mm. Just add our little seed beads all the way around. Now when we get to our very last one, we're going to pick up our 3 11-0s, go through our 6-0, and then we want to travel up the little 11-0s all the way through the 6mm drug. Now, when you're coming through these drugs, or whatever you're using for your 6mm round, you need to make sure that as you come through, you grab the seed bead on the other side, because it's very difficult to get your needle between the 6mm round and the first seed bead. Once you get it through there, then it's not so difficult. Then you can just hop up into the middle seed bead. We're going to work from peak to peak now. So we're going to pick up an 11-0, and then we're going to pick up a 4mm round and an 11-0. And we're going to go from this peak here to this peak, but we're also going to, when we do this, just because it's easier at this stage to get through the beads, we are going to go through the next 11-0, the drug, and the 11-0 after it, all in one stroke, so that we don't have to struggle getting our needle through after we come out. Oops. And there we are. That's upside down. Let's get a little closer so you can see now. Now I'm coming out of the last little 11-0 here. Let's go ahead and go through this 11-0. We'll do this one close so you can see. Now we're going to go from this bead to this bead and then travel all the way through and exit the bead behind the drug. So we're going to pick up an 11-0, a 4mm round, an 11-0. We're going to go through the seed bead in the middle, through the seed bead behind the middle one, and then I was able to actually go through both the seed beads behind the drug, which is great. That positions me for my next embellishment. So now I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a 4mm round, and an 11-0. And again, I am going to go into the middle seed bead and try to get into the seed bead behind the drug. And one more time. We're going to pick up an 11-0, a 4mm round, an 11-0, go into the seed bead in the middle over here, and then through all the seed beads, the one behind it, and all the seed beads on this side if I can do it. Yep, so it's able to travel through all of them. Now this is what your component will look like. It is finished. However, we need to tie it off, because if we do not tie it off, it will pull apart as we're joining them together. So we're going to go up through this little 4mm round here and make sure everything's tight and pretty, and then just grab a little half hitch knot right here between the beads. Now you are going to be moving through these beads again when you join them together, so make sure it's a small little knot just right between the beads. And then travel down through the next 11-0s, come out by this 6mm round, and do another knot. Make sure that your threads go right down in between those beads. Now, it's really difficult to get back into the bead right here by this 6mm, but you can do it. So just pull your needle around. Go ahead and sew around the unit a couple more beads. Maybe you'll want to go up through this one and exit the 6mm round. Then you can just cut your thread off. Now, like I said, the ones that you're using an arm length of thread, you will cut your thread off. The ones that you are doing the two that you are doing with the long thread, with the wingspan and a half, yard and a half, whatever you want to call it, then you will leave your threads on. You will not cut them off. You can cut your tail off, of course, on the back, but don't cut off your working thread. You will want to leave that on. And this is what your component looks like. Now you will make 13 components, 2 with long threads and 11 with the threads cut off, just like this. And we'll be back. Okay, so I have made my 13 components. Now I have made 11 and sewed around them and tied them off. Now make sure when you're tying off that you sew around quite a bit and knot at least twice. Also, in the units that you leave your long thread, when you're done, make sure that you knot off once and then sew around the unit. Make sure that you're not just coming out of one of the beads that you just added. And when we do our middle section here, it will pull those beads out if you haven't gone around the unit. And a little knot, like by the 6 millimeter round or something, will be very helpful to hold everything together. Because once we start sewing through just the little 4 millimeters to connect our units, we can have some issues. So we want to make sure everything is tight and together. Now you want to lay your 2 beads with the longer threads next to each other side by side here in the middle, and you want to have one with the thread coming out and away, and then you want to have one with the thread towards the middle here. So both of them, if you're looking at them, both threads will be coming out of the most left side 4 millimeter round. And then you will place a little component, another component that you've tied off in the middle here. Let's get a little closer so that you can see what I'm doing here. Let's move those things out of the way. We are going to join these 3 units together to be the centerpiece of our necklace now. And now I am coming out of the top of this bead here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead. And now if you're coming out the bottom, you can also just go down into this bead first. But since I'm coming out the top and I have to join these beads together in a right angle weave unit, I need 4 beads. So, and I only have 3. So I'm going to pick up an 11/0, a 4 millimeter round, and an 11/0. And then I'm coming from this bead, I am going to go into the top of this bead here, so that I can just join all 4 of these beads together. Now I'm going to go from this bead to this bead. So I am just going to go directly into the bead, not the 11/0s on either side, just the bead here. And now we're going to go into this bead, directly into the 4 millimeter round on the other unit. And pull our thread through. And now we just want to sew around this entire unit that we just added at least 1 complete time. So go back through all of the beads. Avoid the 11/0s on either side of the beads that were already on the unit. Of course, sew through the 2 that we added. And once you've sewn up through all of them, come back through the 11/0 on the top here and the 4 millimeter, but not the 11/0 on the other side, and pull tight. Now your unit should be pretty secure. Now at this point, this is where we're going to use our one little 4 millimeter bicone crystal here. Back off just a little. We're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a bicone crystal. I'm using a little champagne bicone, and another 11/0 seed bead. we are coming out of this bead here, we're going to go into this bead on the opposite sides. We're coming out of this side, we're going to go in this side in the opposite bead. So just bring your needle through the bead on the bottom here and pull all your thread through. That'll lay your crystal right on top in a diagonal. Now you're coming out of this side of the bead. We're going to pick up an 11-0. We're going to grab a hold of our little crystal. This is going to kind of straighten it. And we're going to pull our thread through. Now you have your little 11-0s on either side here, and we need one more here, and we need to go into the bead on the opposite side to connect this side of the bicone crystal. So we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead. We're going to go into the 4mm round on the bottom here, and pull. I just kind of arrange it so that it lies on there nice and neat like that. Now we're going to sew down around through all of our beads and then up and around until we can get to this bead here so that we can start joining our other units to our centerpiece here. So let's just sew. We're going to have to go back into this little 11-0 seed bead here. We're coming out of the top 4mm round. Basically, I'm just sewing around the beads I just sewed into. And then I'm going to sew into this 4mm round here. Now I'm going to hop into these seed beads here and just go through as many beads as I can because I just want to sew around this unit to get to the opposite side of it. Getting through these beads is kind of difficult, so if you can, pick up the first 11-0 before you get out of the 6mm bead as you're sewing around. Don't miss any of your beads because the thread will show and it'll look gross. And now I am coming out of the 4mm bead on the very opposite side where I started here. Let's move away a little bit. Oops, wrong way. It's like this. We are going to start joining our units onto our necklace here. This is the main part of our necklace. So what we are going to do is we are going to now pick up a seed bead, an 11-0, a 4mm, or I'm sorry, a 6mm round, and an 11-0. Now we're going to join this bead to this bead with these two beads, or three beads actually. So we're going to go into the 4mm round on our next unit here. And that's what we have. Now we need to join this half, so we're going to pick up an 11-0, a 6mm round, and an 11-0, and we're going to go down back into the bead we started in, avoid the 11-0 on either side. Now we will sew around this unit completely. To secure it, anytime you have a joint like this, you want to go through it at least twice because they can pull apart. So, and here again, you want to make sure that all your units are very tightly put together so that as you're doing this, you don't pull your units or your components apart here. Once you've sewn around the entire unit you've just added, you will again sew up around all of the beads in your component and get to the next 4mm round, and we'll be back. Okay, so I've sewn up from my joint here all the way up into my next 4mm round. We'll put one more unit on here, one more component on, and then I will just have you go ahead and finish out. We will put 6, let me count to make sure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We will have, including our first unit, we will have 6 units on one side. So including the one in the middle here that we joined to our pendant part, we will have 6 components on one side of the necklace. So after I show you how to add this one, I'll let you go, and then when you have 6 including this one, we will be back. Let's go ahead and add one more component just so that we've got that down. We're coming out of this little 4mm round. We will pick up an 11/0, a 6mm round, and an 11/0. We will go into the 4mm round on the next component that we're going to add. Now, always making sure that your components are facing up, they're facing the right direction, or you'll have some down and some up, and you won't like that. Then we will pick up an 11/0, a 6mm round, and 11/0, and come into the other side of our 4mm round on our first component here. And that's how we will join it. We will then sew all the way around this unit and then sew up through the next component until we get the component we just added, until we get to the 4mm round and are able to do another component. And we will just continue that until we have, like I said, 6 of them on this side, starting with the middle component here. Now I have finished adding my components on this side of the necklace. And of course I have 6 from the center unit on up. And now I'm coming out of my little 4mm round right here. And now we're going to start adding the extension part of our necklace. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead and a 6mm round, an 11/0 seed bead, a 4mm round, an 11/0 seed bead, a 6mm round, and an 11/0 seed bead. So this is what you will have on your needle right here. 11, 6mm, 11, 4mm, 11, 6mm, and an 11. And then we're coming out of this side of our 4mm round, we're going to go into the opposite side and pull the beads down into a circle. Now we are going to sew around until we come up to the top 4mm round bead. We're just exiting the 4mm round. We're not going to go into the 11/0. Now if you feel that you need to secure this unit, you can sew around until you exit here again. That's fine. Now you will start to add your little extension units by adding 4 seed beads on the outside and 3 on the inside as we're making our units. This will maintain a nice curve as our little extension is put on. We want to maintain the roundness of our necklace. So we're coming out on the inside. We're just going to pick up 3 seed beads because our thread is aiming towards the inside. So we're going to pick up 3 11/0s, and then we are going to pick up a 6mm round And then we're going to pick up 4 11-ohs. So on your needle, you will have 3 11-ohs, a 6mm round, and then 4 11-ohs. And you will go into the opposite side of the bead you're coming out of and pull them down. Now, we need to climb up into these 3 11-oh seed beads and exit our 6mm round. So we will just sew up into the 3 11-ohs, then go through our 6mm round, and we are now coming out of the outside of the necklace. So we will add 4 11-oh seed beads, a 6mm round, and 3 11-oh seed beads. So this is what we will have right here. We're coming out of this side of the 6mm round. We'll go into the opposite side of the 6mm round and pull. And again, we're now coming out of this bead. We need to be coming out of this bead. So we will come up our 4 on the outside here. And then into our 6mm round, tighten everything up, and we're coming out on the inside, so we will pick up 3 11-ohs, a 6mm round, and then 4 11-ohs. And we will go into the opposite side of the 6mm round we're coming out of. Now, we will just continue doing this if you want the same size length that I have, which is about a 19-inch necklace, including the length of my clasp. Now, my clasp isn't huge, so if you are using a really big clasp, then your length will be longer. So you may consider shortening these if you want to maintain 19 inches. Otherwise, if you want to make a longer necklace, then you will make more of these units. I, however, am going to make 6 of them, and then I will be back. Okay, so I have made my 6 little extension units, and you can see how it started to curve a little bit, so it will maintain the roundness of my necklace by putting the 4 seed beads on the outside and the 3 on the inside. I'm now exiting this bead here from the inside, and now I'm going to add this side of my clasp. So I'm going to pick up 4 11-oh seed beads, and then I'm going to pick up a 6-oh seed bead, maybe, and then I'm going to go through my clasp. And then I'm going to go back through the 11-oh seed bead and just the 11-oh. Or I mean the 6-oh, I'm sorry, the 6-oh seed bead. Just like that. So through the clasp and then back through the 6. And then pick up 4 more 11-ohs and go into your main bead on your unit here on the opposite side, just like this. And pull it. And now we will sew up these 4 into the 6-oh around the clasp, back down into the 6-oh, and through the 4 seed beads here, back through the 6mm round, and then back up, and do the same thing about 3 times, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I have secured my clasp on. And now I just need to sew down through and reinforce these beads as I'm sewing down and back into my work and tie off this side of the thread. So the way I'm going to do that is after securing my clasp, I'm coming out of this side of the 6mm round. I'm just going to go into the 3 11-ohs. Then I'm going to go back into the 6mm round and avoid the 11-ohs as I come out. and then I'm going to go down the 4 11/0s on the outside, and then into the 6mm round. And we're just going to continue doing this in this motion all the way down until we get to our main body of work. On the outside of our first component, we can sew back around and tie off, like on the inside of the 6mm round, then sew back up through, tie off again, sew around. And if you would like, you can sew down into these units as far as you want until your thread runs out, just sewing through and tying off. Just stay on the outside, don't go on the inside here. It's difficult to pass through these beads and you'll just make a mess. So just stay on the outside, and when you're done, tie off, and we'll be back. Okay, so now I have tied this side of the thread completely off, and I have put my needle onto the thread coming out of the other unit that we left the long thread on. And we're going to do exactly the same thing we did on this side. We're going to start connecting our units on this side. We will connect until we have 6, counting from this unit up. We will do exactly the same connection and the same extension, put the other side of the clasp on exactly the same way. However, after you're done sewing through your units, after you've added your clasp, you'll sew back down through your units. Sew back down around your connecting unit to the side of the component, and just stay there. Don't tie your thread off, and we'll be back. Okay, so this is what I have so far. I've done my entire opposite side. I've done my extension, added my clasp, came back down through my extension like we did on the other side. And I'm now coming out of this little, let me get you closer. I'm coming out of this little 4mm round right here. We're going to sew down into the little 11/0 right underneath it. And we're going to follow our thread path, going down through the 6, through the 11, and through this 4mm round here. And right here, we're going to go up through the 11/0 and just the 11/0 right here. And because we want to get to the inside, and even if we sew around this way, well, our thread will be going the wrong direction. Right here, we're just going to tie a little tiny half hitch knot between the 6mm round and the 11/0 that we just came out of, right there. Now we can turn around. We can go back through the 11/0 and back through the 4mm round, right here. And we haven't disturbed our thread path. We'll come back down through these little 3 11/0s. Try to get into the 11/0 on the other side of the 6mm round also if you can. I'm going to get them all except for one, so I'm going to pull this through, come up through this 11/0 and the 4mm round right here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working the inside of the necklace now with our first line of embellishments. This is also going to cinch the necklace up a little bit. However, my thread is not long enough now. I have some thread left, but not enough to go all the way around, and I'm going to end up extending it anyway. So at this point, I'm going to extend my thread. I'm just going to cut it and leave enough, a couple inches, so that I can tie a square knot. So I'm going to grab some more thread, and we'll probably need at least a wingspan of thread. So get yourself a good yard or so, a little bit more, probably a little more. And we will tie a square knot in our thread here. I'll get you close. Now there is a video on YouTube called Extending FIreline for Bead Weaving, so you might want to watch that too. I'm going to do this fairly quickly. I'm going to take my new thread, put it underneath my old thread. I want to do it as close to the beads as possible. take my thread underneath my old thread underneath my new thread on the right side here, and then cross the left thread under the right thread and pull. This is just a square knot. Now I have a little tiny knot right here in my thread. I'm going to take the two ends and I'm going to cut them close. If you stretch them, cut them close, because if you don't, you'll have several inches, your knot will pull out several inches, and you don't want a real long bunch of thread that you have to pull the knot through a million times. So I've cut them very close, as you can see. I'm just going to very lightly singe the ends. They could have been a tiny bit longer than that, but at the bottom of the flame, I'm just going to very lightly singe these ends to where they ball up. You can see the little tiny balls on there. Then pull your thread tight, and you will have a little tiny wad in your thread there, a little tiny ball. And this is very, very strong. This is a good way to extend your FIreline. Now I have my FIreline extended, and I don't have to worry about sewing through, tying on, and doing all that crazy stuff. So I'm just going to thread my needle with my new thread, and I'm ready to go again. Let's back off a little. So now we're going to start our first embellishments. We're going to come through, we're coming out of this little 4mm round here. We are now going to go through the little 11-0 on the other side of it. Pull our thread through. Now I have to get my extension through, so I have to pull a little bit. That's why you want to keep them very close to the bead, so that you don't have to pull that little knot through a bunch and weaken it. Anyway, let's pick up. Now we will pick up 4 or 3 11-0 seed beads and a 6-0, and then 4 11-0 seed beads. We are going to count the 11-0 we're coming out of as one of our seed beads. So we'll have 3, and then a 6-0, and then 4, and we are going to go from this 11-0 to the 6-0 bead in our extension. So we're going to go all the way down into this 6mm bead, not 6-0, and pull. We've got to pull them over our little extension. Now our extension is covered and we don't have to worry about it anymore. Now you've got a little embellishment going from this bead to this bead. Now we are going to do the same from this bead to this bead. After you come out of the 6mm round, then you will add onto your thread or onto your needle 4 11-0s, a 6-0, and 3 11-0s. Now you don't have an 11-0 that you're coming out of this bead. We're not going to go through this one. We're just going to go through the 11-0 here. So that's why we will pick up 4 and then 3. So drop them down and then come into the next 4mm round on your next component. Also come through the 11-0 seed bead. You can come through both of them if you'd like, if you can get them both. I can't. Let's get you a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to go through this little 11-0. We're just going to go through the 11-0s when we're on the top of the components coming through the 4mm round. Now we're going to add 3 11-0s to our needle because we've already got 1 on our thread here. We'll pick up a 6-0 and then 3 or 4 11-0s because we will not go through an 11-0 on the other side. So now we're coming from this bead, we're going to go into the bead in our joint here. And pull our beads together. And we're going to do the same thing from this bead to this bead. We will pick up the 11-0 on this side, but we don't have one on this side. So we pick up 3 11-0s a 6/0, and then 4, or excuse me, 4 11/0s, a 6/0, and then 3 11/0s. Like this. And then we will go from this bead to the next one on our component, plus the little 11/0s on either side. Like this. Now you'll just continue doing this embellishment from this bead to this bead to this bead to this bead, all the way until we get to the very top bead here before our middle components. Okay, so I have done my embellishments until I'm coming out of this little 4mm round before I get right to my very center unit here. Let's get a little closer. Now you're going to put the same embellishment on your needle. You're coming out of the 11/0 here, so you're going to put on 3 11/0s, a 6/0, and 4 11/0s. You're going to come, let's drop these down just to get them out of the way. You're then going to come into the very center 4mm round that you added when you were putting your 3 units together. So we're just going to come right through just the 4mm round bead here, just like this. And pull it. Now we're going to do the same thing from here to here now. So we need to pick up 3 11/0 seed beads, a 6/0, or excuse me, 4 11/0 seed beads, a 6/0, and then 3 11/0 seed beads. Like this. And we're coming out of the little center bead here. We're going to go up and through this little 11/0 here, and then through the 4mm bead. So we'll just sew right through this little 11/0 and the 4mm. Just like that. And then we will go through the little 11/0 seed bead here and continue our embellishments until we get all the way to the end of our necklace over here. Okay, so I finished my embellishments all the way up on this side. Now I went ahead, I ended here on this 4mm round bead right here, and then I just sewed up through the 11/0s, through the 6/0, through the 11/0s here, and I am coming out right between this 4mm and this 11/0 seed bead right here. And I need to turn myself around so that I can get back down to the inside of my necklace. Now, even if I sewed around, I'm going to still be going the wrong direction. So I need to turn myself around by tying a little knot here. So I am just going to tie a little knot between this 4mm bead and this 11/0 bead. And then I'm going to turn my work a little bit here. I am going to come back down into these 11/0s and into the 6mm here. That's getting a little tight, so I'm just going to pull my needle through gently with my flat nose and pull my thread back through. Okay, now I'm going to sew up through this 11/0, and then I'm just going to come through this 4mm here. So basically, after you get done with your embellishments, just sew up a few beads to the end of your necklace, tie a knot, turn around, and sew back until you're exiting the 4mm round that you ended in with your embellishments. Now, I'm going to turn my necklace back around. And we are going to work our way back down the necklace. Get positioned here. Okay, so I'm coming back out of the little 4mm round that I ended my embellishment in. And now I am going to have to sew down these 11 O's, because now I'm going to work in these little 6/0 seed beads. My next embellishment will be pulling those together. This is what's going to cinch our necklace into a circle and make it shorter and tighter. So that's why we needed our extension. If you notice right now, your necklace is probably a lot longer than 19 inches. After we do this, it won't be. It will be a lot shorter. So what we're going to do to start this next embellishment, we're going to get into the 11 O's right next to the 4mm round that you're coming out of. And we're going to sew all the way through until we exit the 6/0 seed bead. And then we are going to pick up an 11/0, a 6/0, and an 11/0 on our needle, just like this. And then we are going to go from this 6/0 to this 6/0 and pull. And then again we are going to pick up an 11/0, a 6/0, and an 11/0. Then we're going to go from this 6/0 to this 6/0. Just sew right through it. And pull it tight. Now we need to get over here so that we can move down our necklace. So we need to sew through this 11/0, this 6/0, this 11/0, and this 6/0. So just go ahead and get back into the little 11/0 here and sew back through until you're coming out of the far 6/0 seed bead. And pull. And that will pull that embellishment together. Now, I prefer to go ahead and sew around this again. You could go ahead and go into your 11 O's, but I'd rather just sew around my embellishment one more time, just to make sure that it's going to stay together and have the proper little form there. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew back around this little unit I just added. Otherwise, it can look a little sloppy, and I don't want it to look sloppy or thready. So I'm just going to go back through it. And now that I've done that, I will exit the 6/0 seed bead again, and then I will go ahead and sew through all these seed beads here, this bead and these seed beads, and exit this 6/0. Okay, so now you want to kind of relax your thread by pulling on it, keeping things from bunching, because this has a tendency to very much bunch up and ruffle, and we don't want so much tension that that's happening. We will get a little bit of a ruffle effect in this when we're finished, but we don't want a lot. So we want to keep our thread from really being tight while we're doing this. So just kind of relax it by pulling on it just a little bit and making sure it's lying correctly. Then pick up an 11/0, a 6/0, and an 11/0. Go from this 6/0 to this 6/0. And then pick up an 11/0, a 6/0, and an 11/0. Go from this 6/0 to this 6/0, and then through all the beads you just added, and back through the 6-0. Then go ahead and sew through your unit one more time. Exit the 6-0. And now you will sew through the next 11 O's, the 4mm round, the 11 O's, and exit the 6-0 here. Do your embellishment again, and you will continue that the entire length of the necklace. The embellishment will be the same when you get to the center. It'll be exactly the same, so just continue through the center all the way to your very last 6-0 on your necklace. Okay, so I went ahead and finished my embellishment. And then I sewed through and tied off several times going around the outside of my units. And this is what the necklace, the finished product, looks like. Now this necklace does ruffle a little bit, and where the drucks are, where it is joined, it will kind of puff up and ruffle a little bit. The effect is kind of pretty actually. I was going to eliminate that by adding more seed beads when I did my first round of embellishments, which you can do. You can make the first round of embellishments longer so that the 6-0s aren't pulling together so tight. However, I decided once I put it on that I kind of liked the way it looked. It kind of looks like leaves to me, the way that they ruffle and fall. So I decided to leave that ruffle in. So when you are making yours and it ruffles a little bit, you're not doing anything wrong. It will ruffle. However, you do need to kind of pull on it and straighten it like I showed you as you're making it, so that it doesn't get too carried away ruffling. You don't want it to be really, really tight. Then it'll just kind of stand up on your neck. So the little bit of ruffle that's in it now is acceptable. It's okay. It's kind of pretty actually. Anyway, that's how you make this necklace. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.